Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. I'm very excited today because I have my friend Amber from Road to Top Valley and also Atlas Elsewhere joining with me today, and we are talking about the mega sci-fi series, The Expanse. I just finished these two the last few days, and I'm ready to talk about it because this is a series I've been reading since like 2020 or 2021, and it's been a long road, and we've been talking about the series a lot ever since I think I joined your server, and that's just how are you doing? I'm happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited to talk some Expanse. It's been a while. Hopefully my memory serves me correctly. I finished, Leviathan Falls the week that it came out,
Hmm.
but it's very it's not often where I'm into a series where it's like I'm getting the books and reading them immediately as they come out, like
Mm-hmm.
in succession like this. So I don't know. The Expanse is a love of mine. It's a great series. It's a fun series.
Oh yeah. And what's funny is that I first approached the series through the TV show, and I hopped off pretty quickly because it was just really weird and very gritty and all this stuff. But then as I began the book, all those elements I loved a lot more in the books. And I think first we'll do non spoilers. So for anyone who hasn't read the books or seen the TV show, you are safe to watch this. We'll just talk about general thoughts and feelings, and then we'll go into full series spoilers because I have a lot of opinions about the final book and also the short stories. So I won't go into too heavily spoilers with that because I know you haven't read all of them yet. But I'll
Hmm.
just kind of give some general thoughts on those because this is really like a whole package deal, like as a series, having the TV show, the short novellas, and also the main 9 books. And what's funny is that the first 6 books is one arc, and then the last 3 books is another arc. And so that's something I did not know of going in. So for anyone who doesn't know, there is a bit of a time skip in this series, which I think is fascinating. I love time skips in series, seeing how our characters change and grow throughout the time. But what are some of your favorite elements of this series? Because I think this is your favorite series, right?
No,
Or yeah.
I mean, I really like sci-fi. So, I mean, The Expanse was kind of one of these series that got me back into reading again.
Hmm.
Um, I had kind of like, I went through A Song of Ice and Fire, and then after I was finished with that, I was like, there's nothing else that was really like catching my attention. Then I stumbled onto it was like season one of The Expanse, and I was like, this show is dope. Like this
Mm-hmm.
show is great. And then I was Googling and I was like, oh, damn, this is a book series. Okay. And so, like, I caught up, and then, the show's canceled. And I was like, well, I'll still have the books. And then the show got picked up, and, it's kind of all over the place. But if it wasn't for The Expanse, I probably wouldn't have found so many other sci fi series that I really like. But essentially, some of the bigger things that I enjoy about it, I do like how it encompasses so much time, without like, any spoilers or anything. You really get a sense of, what these different factions and different locations look like, and the world building is really nice, and this kind of, forward thinking of like what could potentially happen with, our own technology, our own environment. What would it look like if, we colonize, our solar system and stuff like that. And so I really enjoy those elements to it where I think that the crafting of that was done with a lot of love. And I think that they do a really good job of making things, I guess, interpreting things and how like things could potentially play out, right? I'm trying to not say anything spoilery, but um, yeah, it's always just a thing with sci-fi, that question of what if. And I think that's one of the things that The Expanse does incredibly well, whether you're looking at it technologically or socially or politically. And if you're into that type of thing, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yep. You make a lot of great points because the world building is one of my favorite of any series because it goes in such realistic directions because we do have the sci-fi side. And I won't say specifically what parts, but like how humanity responds to that. Like it's so believable. And watching the show, it makes it even better because you have the visual aspect as well, where you can see everything and you have the actors and everyone's fantastic in the TV show. And I would also say the characters is one of my favorite parts of this series.
Yeah.
Like every single character, like you fall in love with or you love to hate, and like those first like 3 or 4 books are just like 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10 for me. Like I just love it so much. And you mentioned the political aspect. That is one part that I don't like as much with this series. And I'm a guy who loves reading politics in my stories, like especially fantasy and all that. But in this series, I feel like it just gets a little bit repetitive. I feel like it becomes predictable in how the characters will respond. And I just kind of I feel like I was slogging through some of these later books because so much of the focus was politics. And I think a lot of people will like it anyways because it is that way from the very first book. But I like the sci-fi elements more. Like I wanted more of that. And that kind of
Mm.
becomes like the
I'm the
background.
opposite.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I could have gone like more longer, deeper with the politics, but you know, I think one of the interesting things is about that aspect is like with the politics, you think you think you meet the big bad, and then you spend all this time, dealing with, this one character, and then it's like, oh, fake out, like there's something else to overcome, and then oh, fake out, actually that's not even the big deal. The big deal is something else. So it's just like it kind of like
Hmm.
it goes and goes.
Yeah. And like it was funny because while I was reading the final few books, it hasn't been adapted yet. But all I could think was, man, I would love like the story a whole lot more if I saw it on the television than just reading
Hmm.
about it because like this TV show just gets everything even better than the books, I feel like. And the books are already fantastic, I feel like. Overall, I love the series. It is a top 10 for me. But like the visual medium just lends so well to the Expanse, I feel like. And I need them to adapt it, the final trilogy, like maybe in
Mm,
10 years or so. But
I would love that. I would love that. I mean, I just I don't know. Prime Video, man. They really, I mean, if they were going to stop it at any place before, reaching the conclusion, I guess they chose a great spot. But at the same time, yeah, I can't even say without going into spoilers. So,
yeah, yeah, we'll
yeah.
table that. So one thing that I wanted to talk about with the series is all the different factions. This is one of my favorite parts of the early books, is seeing all the different agendas and characters aligned with different factions. We have Mars, we have the OPA, we have the Earth Coalition, we have just all these different factions. And I would love to hear sort of like, what did you think of them and sort of just everything with
Okay.
that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not a single faction that I like more than the others because I think they all just have such a great dynamic. I mean, obviously on Earth you have, essentially like the group of people who are like like the squatters, you know what I mean? Like people who have nothing, who, the ecosystem has been decimated. Like people are not living well. And so you've got a lot of angry people on Earth. And then you've got the political side of that, trying to keep things in check, but also, the establishment of Earth has beef with Mars. And so you go into it thinking kind of like, okay, is like Mars the baddies? And then as time goes on, it's like actually like Mars is kind of dope. Like their navy kicks ass. They're hardcore. And then like you start meeting some of these more like military characters, and you're like, okay, like we've got some real like cool people on that side as well. And then how can it get better than that until you start meeting some of these OPA people, and you're like, okay, well, I mean, you bring in Anderson Dawes, or like drummer in the show, I guess. We don't have her in the books, but I think her character kind of encompasses a lot of other characters from the books, where um, you've got a lot of like great characters within the factions, but like the overall vibe, I would say, like of the factions, like I love our OPA characters up until a certain point. Um, but I think it's just more like the strife, like these are the people, the most with the least, lesser to lose, I guess. They've just been dealt the worst hand possible, and so they end up in space doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do for nothing, and they're essentially just a tool for Earth and Mars, and they're supplying them. And so you for me, I feel like they have like the strongest, most like passionate, background story, which makes them very enjoyable, because the motivations, I guess, from any of our OPA characters are just really intense. So like a lot of bold personalities, a lot of really deep seated feelings, and that's always fun going into a series, because if it can get you to feel something, then it's doing this job, right? Um, but I would be hard pressed to even say like they're my favorite. I There's so much to enjoy.
Yeah, I would say Mars and the OPA are like my top two of the factions, just because they have the most interesting characters, and they have just the most like distinct and unique like personalities, and just sort of how they're made up of the many different characters and all that. And I
Hmm.
will also say, I guess is a good transition point, but talking about the Rocinante crew, like I have never seen a better like encapsulation of humanity in like a group of people than them. And all of them I love with all my heart, even when it gets really dark and they're not the goodest or the best people doing good things. But from the get go, like they are so fully realized. And that's why I ended up continuing the series, because by book five, I was thinking about giving up on the series and just looking up the spoilers, because I just was not interested in the politics, which was such a main focus, but I cared so much about the characters. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to see the journey, see where they went, and they go to some really wild places, both figuratively and literally. And I think my favorite is probably Amos, but I also love Naomi. I kind of love Holden. I think he's my least favorite out of the crew, because he's Holden. I mean, I think we all know. But like, I also really like the newer people that come in and out of the crew as the series goes on. And I won't go into details with that, but like, there's so many just fascinating characters in the Rocinante crew. And I know you're a big fan of the different spaceships and all that. So, what do you think of like the Rocinante crew and sort of how they interact with the rest of the story and characters?
Like it's just a very like solid found family type of, you know, plot, I guess,
Hmm.
where you've got just this band of misfits, I guess, and you slowly get to know them and slowly come to like really care about them and start to know more about their backstory. And I mean, I would say so much of like each, arc in the books tends to kind of link up with one of the Rocinante crew members. So like certain books will cover like one big aspect and it'll tie very, closely to one of our main characters. And so I do think that, it, it's hard to talk about the crew member that I like because that will be a spoiler for like later on because it's, the crew grows, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that it's a good group. Um, but I think probably my favorite doesn't start out as a part of the Rocinante, so I have to like put a pin in it.
Yeah. Well, we're about 15 minutes in if you want to go ahead and go into full spoilers.
Okay, full spoilers.
So, for anyone
Okay,
who hasn't read all
yeah.
9 books or the short stories, like, now's the time to dip. So,
Okay. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I love Roberta Draper. I think she's such a badass. What I love even more, I think, is because you're kind of, I would say like you're kind of like following in the footsteps of like something like Alien, right? Like you got your sci-fi movie or series or whatever, and like the one character that's like that badass, like gritty, like here to save the day. Like they're like, no, we're gonna make that a woman.
hmm.
And I always think that's a fun kind of like play on things where because they very, very easily could have had Amos just be like, the guy, like the brawler, the brute, the one who comes in and saves the day and just pummels the shit out of people left and
Hmm.
right, right? Um, but instead they decided no, it's going to be this, jarhead Martian woman who's just like 8 feet, not 8 feet tall, but she's very large and just like built like a like brick, and she is very hard, on the surface, but as her story progresses, like, you get to see a softer side of her and, what she really stands for. And the, I guess, emotional whiplash of her not really knowing where she fits in anymore due to her, you know, her alignment with Mars and then Earth, and then, never really feeling like she's a part of, like she has a home, I guess, until she is there with the Rossi crew, and then she makes sacrifices that are just like some of the biggest
Hmm.
sacrifices possible. But I think she's just got a really incredible story. Um, and yeah, like I love Roberta Draper. I love Bobby. Just like conjuring up that image of her like in her power armor and just like standing there is just a lot of fun. But I love Amos as well. If we're talking about favorite characters, he's just very deep. Like he's got a wealth of like background information that makes him very compelling as well.
Oh yeah, like yeah, Bobby is who I assumed was your favorite because like we always just talk about how badass she is, and she has such an incredible journey, like aligning with another favorite character of mine, Christian Avasarala. Like
Mm.
her whole storyline with that, I think that's book 2 when they have that plot line, and it's just fantastic. Like I just love seeing the world through her eyes because she is sort of like doesn't really have a home, and so she doesn't really have like as deep of an investment as a lot of other characters where they're like, I'm fighting for Earth, Earth is my home, and Mars, and so on, so on. But like with her, it isn't until she's with the Rossi that that is her home. And I just
Mhm.
love on initial reading at the end of book 8, spoilers, we have
Mhm.
her heroic sacrifice against the Laconian Empire, where she just shuts down an entire ship by herself.
I was so mad. I was so mad. I was so mad when it happened. And then, when they named the, Draper Station after her. Oh my God, I'm getting choked up. I was like sobbing,
Hmm.
sobbing, like just distraught. Oh,
Yeah, I was really angry on first reaction. I remember I sent you a text because it was just like death after death after death in this book. Like, and I was just like, oh my gosh, all the interesting characters I love are getting killed off. And then Amos was brought back, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. Like, I'm fine with this.
I love the epilogue and
Hmm.
Leviathan Falls. Like it was just the cherry on top for me. I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh yeah, he's back. He's back."
I like how too the idea that there's like a century or millennia. I forget which word they use. I think it was millennia, because he was like, "Yeah, I haven't spoken Chinese in a while. Can we just speak English? Like, I haven't brushed up on my language skills in I don't know how many centuries or something like that." And
Yeah.
Earth is just destroyed still from the rock falls or the meteor falls, and like it was just such a fun epilogue because it was kind of like, okay, I they could
Yeah,
keep
because they're
going, I
like
guess,
yeah,
but
they're like talking, if I remember correctly, they're like what is this like old Earth dialect? And they're like,
hmm,
actually we understand it and
yeah.
it works, whatever. But yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool. Proto Amos
Hmm.
is like what is Proto Amos? Nobody knows. Like we never really fully get, what the full description of that is, but yeah, I think it was a nice little way to wrap things up, but still introduce a little bit of intrigue in the end, where it's like, if they ever wanted to like take it further, they could. They left themselves enough there, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Where it's like we can keep going with that if we wanted to, but we're not.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really funny because book 8 sort of marked like my favorite book since book 4. And I know a lot of people don't like book 4 as much. I love it. I love like the small scale Holden just trying to keep everyone together. But like book 8, prologue starts right off with Avasarala dying of old age. You know, great death
Hmm.
for her. She dies pretty happy, surrounded by family, if I recall. And like they have a really wonderful funeral for her. And so I was like, okay, I'm not upset about that. And halfway through the book, we've been hearing about this character hiding in a cave who is interacting with Teresa, who is the Emperor's daughter. And I really loved her storyline. I thought she was really interesting. I loved reading about her father. Like, all that stuff was fun. Book 7, I didn't like it at all. But, like,
I was so surprised that you didn't clock that was Amos at first
I had no
because
idea.
yeah, because I just like for whatever reason I thought you were gonna just text me and be like, "Holy shit, it's him in the cave."
I had
I
no
was waiting
idea.
for it.
Yeah, because the whole book, everyone's like, I don't know where Amos is. And I assumed he was, like, doing, I don't know, troop
Hmm.
gathering or something in one of the stations or something. But it ends up he's been, like, just outside this compound for I don't know
It's
how many.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
he's right there. And,
I love like a rogue solo mission so
mm-hmm,
much, and for it to be him, it was great. But
yeah.
like I do think it was set up so wonderfully because from the beginning of Amos's story till the very end, you're building up to his past and his connection to childhood trauma. And
Mm-hmm,
what that does is keeps him very, very motivated and very, very ready to like swing on site whenever the issue has something to do with a child in need.
mm-hmm,
And so, like, putting him there in the cave to kind of like intercept things, it works out perfectly, because where that sets him up like on his journey, he kind of becomes like this, like really important figure for the two other kids.
Hmm. Zan
Um,
and
yeah,
Kara, I
yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah. But like I just, like you can tell that everything was plotted out from the jump, right? Like starting out with, Pax looking for his missing daughter and Amos being like ready to like jump in and willing to like give it his all to really like buddy up with. Or was it Pax? Prax. Sorry,
Prax, yeah.
Prax. Um, how they instantly become like so connected, and like it's a level deeper than friendship, even, I would say. Like Amos has that like real like guardianship energy where it's like it's impossible not to love him, but you can tell they seeded that way at the beginning of
Hmm.
things. And so for like him to end up, at the very end, over here kind of entwined with these two kids, like yeah, like it, chef's kiss, like well done, perfect, like flow throughout.
Yeah, I agree. Because on initial reaction, because he gets shot in the face, immediately murdered, blood everywhere, and there's no question that he's dead. And they
Hmm.
were like, "Get away from him! That's Amos Burton!" And my jaw dropped. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, he's been here this whole time? And I was like really angry. But by the end of the book, like it was like two chapters later, I was like, wait, there's like those drones that are flying around a proto molecule that just reconstructing machines
Hmm.
and different like fauna and stuff. I was like, I hope Amos is like brought back to life. And then like two chapters later, it was true, and I was like, yes. And he's a little changed, but he has a line I think to Holden where he's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Like I'm still me." Or whatever. And I
Hmm.
felt like that was the authors telling the readers, like, hey, like, it's still Amos. Like, it's not some, uh, like, horrible proto molecule consciousness, like, that he's going to betray everyone. Because that's the proto molecule has not been a good, sort of thing for our characters this entire series. So I was like, I was really nervous about that. But he
Hmm.
does pretty much stay the same from there on out. But every time he gets injured, he just rejuvenates and he's like, ah, I'm hungry, like I need some coffee, and it's like really funny, and I really enjoyed it after that because I was angry on first thought, and then Bobby had her sacrifice, and it just was another thing on top of that, like oh my gosh, like all my favorite characters are being killed, but then I realized that was like the most badass way for her to go out. And Amos survives anyways the whole story, and he's basically immortal now.
Yeah.
Like, so he's
Yeah.
just gonna be. I mean, I would love to see like a future book all about like Amos and like seeing what he's doing. And I really love. I won't go into too much detail, but the final short story, Sins of Our Fathers, which is a few years after, and it's all about Philip and Naomi's son and what he's been up to. Because that was one of my questions. I was like, where is he? Like, he's. I don't think he's dead. But we get all
Right.
those answers. we get. Excuse me, damn. We get all these answers, and I'm just like it was just such a nice like bow tie at the end, like just a great cherry on top, as you said, because it was like okay, all
Yeah.
my answers, all my questions are answered now. Like, and I really enjoyed that short story. It was my favorite since the Fred Johnson one, the Anderson
uh,
Station.
yeah, that's a good one. um yeah, I don't know, I think I find Naomi's, like story and how that, ties into things with Philip and Marco and the OPA. And I really liked that segment of the story, just as, a like thought piece on like the abuse of women, like it's not it's not just like, oh, like here we go, political machinations of some unhinged wannabe space dictator. Um, it's kind of like working it in just how ruthless and just how much of a pure, like purely malignant narcissist this one man is.
Hmm.
And you spend all this time dealing with him, or I guess the characters, he's like the main adversarial character there for a while. And just when you think it's done, like you realize that not only was this malignant, terrible, like narcissist with like the purest form of, like, he's got like the Napoleon complex, like he just like he thinks he's the biggest, the baddest, like you know what I mean? Like I truly believe this character, like everywhere he goes, like feels like there's just people like cheering him on, like he is their savior,
Hmm.
like he puts himself in such a high regard. And like you don't get like just how much of a truly like nightmare he is until you really like dig into the backstory between like how things went with him and Naomi, and then when they reunite, like what he puts her through once again, and basically using their child as like a form of like torture to
Hmm.
her. um and so, like, yeah, it is a long plot line, like the Marcos plot line is long. I could see people being like, okay, let's wrap it up. But what I love is like not only does he just go out like a light, like the way Naomi is able to put things together to just literally make him disappear into thin air. Like, brilliant ending for a malignant narcissist, just like he never was, like
Hmm.
goodbye. Um, but to like build on just like how awful he is, we come to find out that like he was a nothing. He was literally like he was literally Laconia's sleight of hand, like, hey, look over here, like we're dealing with all this OPA, faction war stuff, throwing the rocks at Earth. And while all that's going on, Laconia is just building up like the biggest, baddest, most technologically advanced place possible. And so like it was all sleight of hand. And so like I could see how somebody might not be satisfied with like, oh, like the politics being like whatever. But I think like realistically, when you look at warfare and when you look at like espionage and what Laconia was doing, Marco was the perfect like distraction. And they just, let him go with it. Like they just
Hmm.
kept, you know what I mean? And that was the thing too, because like there were so many questions of like how did Marcos just like end up with everything that he had? You know what I mean? And there's like questions about all of it. And so I don't know, like that being like, the political side flipping into like, and now we just have, like space Nazis with like the
Hmm.
Laconian Empire. I really liked it. I thought, it was bold. Yeah, it might have gone on a little bit too long, but we needed that time jump, and we needed to see, like what this what the climate and the setting would look like after, after a Marco. So yeah.
Yeah, I I liked it, that aspect of the story, for the same reasons you said, but I just did not like Mako at all. I hated reading about him. He's just such a nasty, nasty person. And I felt miserable reading those chapters, especially from Naomi's point of
Yeah.
view, where you get her internal thoughts and feelings. And it's just like, I think those were the most miserable of the books, I feel like. I still enjoyed like reading
Yeah,
them. It was
sure.
fun, but they
I
like
see,
went a very dark direction, I feel like.
yeah, it is a very dark direction, but I think for me, like what makes it stand out so much is that it's a very real
Hmm.
direction. Like there are people like that out there. There are just terrible, terrible people that will make you want to rip your hair out and like set the world on fire just because
Hmm.
like they keep somehow picking up steam, keep picking up sponsorship and people that back them and cheer them on. And
Hmm.
it's such an accurate representation of like a dictator. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's so spot on. And I think like it's supposed to be frustrating, like
Yeah.
incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, it doesn't make for the best reading, but like as we're
Yeah.
talking about it, I'm like, yeah, yeah, I like it.
See, I didn't have a problem reading it. Like I
Mm,
didn't get bored of it at all. Like
yeah.
I was in. Like I was locked in on all of that for the most part. Um I think the latter books, you know, after the time jump is where the series like first start to kind of like lose me a little bit,
Hmm.
I would say. But I mean, I didn't dislike any of it.
What was it that kind of lost you? Because I'm curious.
Um, so I think the aspect of like what's going on with what's Teresa's dad's name? I forget.
Oh, Duat, something like that. I forget his
Yeah,
first name, but
essentially, okay, here's the thing. We never really get like full answers about like what exactly like the proto molecule is or like how it came to be like in specifics.
hmm.
And I'm okay with that. Like I do enjoy a little mystique, but I just think like everyone getting older and, you know, more tired and just like, you know, they start to lose that fight a little bit.
Hmm.
You know, like the edges kind of get a little bit more rounded as people age. It's, you know, a real thing. So that like fierceness isn't like as, you know, strong, and you sense that with Holden as we get towards the end because you kind of get the idea that he knows what's coming. It's almost like he had this idea that it would come to this and,
Hmm.
you know, it would, you know, end badly for him in a way, but like it was kind of sad. It was kind of like just coming to the close, you know, like it's not like other series where like everyone makes it out unscathed and, you know, there's a lot of loss and it's just kind of like bittersweet. But the Laconian characters, yeah, they're all right. Like
Hmm.
after after dealing with Marco for so long, I didn't think any of them were as, you know, interesting, I guess.
Hmm.
In terms of like a villainous character, if you will. I found Marco's, you know, as an adversary much more intriguing, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did not really like the ending to book nine with everything with Holden because I felt like it was too predictable and it was a little repetitive because this was like the third time now we had characters delving into the proto molecule spaceship and having to fight against the proto molecule and then some big like showdown. This time it was Teresa and her father, and I was just
Hmm.
kind of like, yeah, I wanted something different. Like I wanted, I don't know what I wanted, but just it. Like it was fun getting Miller at the end. Like I love Miller. He's one
Hmm.
of my favorite characters of the whole
Yeah,
series.
yeah.
But I was kind of like, okay, like it felt a little tired by that point. And book nine is sort of how I felt about book seven, where I was kind of like, yeah, I like it on a level, but it was not the most
Hmm.
engaging read for me. It took me longer to read this book than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, I'm not too particularly there's nothing that I really like disliked in this series.
Hmm.
It's more just like I definitely had like more favorite books. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
dislike any. I think 4 just being like on world the whole time was like, okay, like I like my
Mm-hmm.
space battles. I like being on
Yeah.
the ship. I like the high speed maneuvers and like the tactical, like, dog fights and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
like being on the ground like kind of takes that out of the realm of
Mm-hmm.
possibility. So it's just kind of like, okay, we're on the ground. I think that's the only reason I didn't really love 4. Um, but I don't dislike any of the books is the
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's just yeah, like speculative sci-fi is hard because, you want to keep things realistic to a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to kind of keep it more like hard sci-fi, but still be speculative and like take it really, really far, right? Like, how can
Mm-hmm.
you push the boundaries of your writing and make it really futuristic or very outside the box and encounter a situation that maybe we haven't experienced in literature before. It's really hard to do that and not just make it like wackadoodle, like
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi click your heels, like, oh, now we have gravity, turn on the gravity boosters, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Go all three
but
body
all,
problem.
uh,
Well,
well,
I love
yeah,
three body problem. I'm just
yeah,
the links
but
that series goes.
yeah, but that's like speculative in the most uh, like imaginative way, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also like a lot of people still characterize it as hard sci-fi because of like all of the like physics concepts and whatnot. Like all of this stuff is real stuff that, very, very smart people talk about all the time. So it's not as like wackadoodle as one might think. But with the expanse, it feels very real in a way where like that could be us. Like give it enough time, that might be us. And if you take away like, some of the Laconia stuff and like, proto Amos and maybe some other things like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like that could be what happens in the future if we were to develop like really efficient spaceships that could travel for a very long time on like little fuel. And so there's just something about the expanse that like it kind of scratches that itch where it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
not super far-fetched. It is far-fetched, but it's not like, you know, going off into the realm of, banana pants Looney Tunes. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was one part, and we can talk about this now. The whole concept of the proto molecule. Ever since book one, I remember texting you like, "I want more, I want more, I want more," and being like
Mhm.
very disappointed at like. I mean, I love the proto molecule. It's one of my favorite things, like in books.
Mhm.
But like, I always felt like it could have gone like a step further and like been more important to the storyline, because the series is more about the ramifications of the proto molecule and I didn't really want an explanation on the builders or whoever from billions of
Mhm.
years ago, but the little teasers we get in book nine were fun, I guess, about like the dreamers and that is like a hive mind and that they're able to interact with each other like in the dreams.
Mhm.
But like I always felt like the proto molecule should have been on screen more and had more sort of I don't know, more effect on the main storyline. And that's why
See,
I got disappointed as we kept on going in the series because it, yeah.
I think it had the main effect though. Like that was like the plot pusher. That's what
Mm-hmm.
started it all. And I don't think that necessarily the story was meant to be about the
Mm-hmm.
proto-molecule and
Yeah.
more just about like what would the world look like in the scenario where something, gets thrown at the solar system like that, and what type of power vacuum would that create, and especially with like all of these different factions. But yeah, like I love my weird stuff too, so like if they
Mm-hmm.
would have included it, I would have eaten it up with a spoon, like
Yeah.
no, 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 like all day. It would have been great.
Yeah.
But like my expectations for this series as a reader, I was just kind of like down for the ride, like just it again, like I said, like it was just something that kind of got me back into reading sci-fi again. And so I didn't come into it with like big expectations. It was just kind of like more like a guilty pleasure read for me, where
Hmm.
like I wasn't sitting there thinking about it, like what does it mean? What are my hopes? It was just like you're spending time with like your old buddies from the
Hmm.
Rossi crew, and that was about it for me.
Yeah, because I did go in with high expectations. I remember, I think after book two, I was like, I have all these theories. And you were like, okay, hold up. Like, the series isn't about that. Like,
I don't even remember these
yeah.
conversations,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, it was like I had all these big theories about like the protomolecule squid, whatever that comes out of, I think, Venus or something like that.
mhm.
And I was like, oh, what if they do this and that? And like, what if they have to like fight it or something? I don't know, with the spaceships. Like, that'd be crazy. And you were like, oh, hold on. Like, it's not about that.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of coming in with these big expectations. And that's why I think I was a little disappointed because I
Mm,
always wanted it to go that extra, like, wild corner or whatever. And that's not what the
mhm.
series is about. It is more about the humans, which
Mm,
I enjoy that aspect a lot, and that's why I think book four is my
yeah.
favorite because like we were on the ground and we didn't have all this like spaceship dogfighting going on. Because I like that stuff for the most part, but by the final books, I was like so tired of reading about it, and I was starting to skim those descriptions because I was just like, okay, we get it. They're
Are
doing
you sure
some
you like sci-fi? Are you sure you like sci-fi?
I love
No, I'm
sci-fi,
kidding.
yeah,
I'm
but
kidding.
like I don't like that part.
Mm,
It's kind of like it's the same kind of thing that I have an issue with when it comes to like Brandon Sanderson like magic system stuff. Where I'm like, okay, I get it. Like you don't have to explain every single thing like to me, and like just say like the ship rolled or something. Like let's just get it
mm.
over with. Like it's more about the characters for me, and that's why I love the Expanse so much. Is that all the characters like I have so much investment for. And when the proto molecule shows up, it's like, oh, anything can happen, but no one really gets like killed off, and it's not like Game of Thrones where major characters.
Really?
I don't feel like it did. I feel like for the most part, all of the important characters came through until like book
Mm,
eight.
who do we have left? Naomi, Amos,
Alex is still around, I think.
Alex. So just the three, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Clarissa dies, Bobby dies, Holden dies, Avasarala dies. Old age, but
yeah.
still dies. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, we don't have like a huge like list of characters here. Like we've kind of got like our core, right?
Hmm.
So it's about like
Yeah.
half and half. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I meant like more like we don't get the violent like oh anyone can die at any moment,
Mm,
like that kind
mm,
of
yeah.
feeling, and I do
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that. But like I don't know, like I love Melee, and when he died, I was like so mad. And then it was like a book later, he shows up in the epilogue. He's like, "Hey, boss, like I'm back," and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like I love Melee. He's one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
characters, and like he has probably my favorite. Like I think that's when I liked Holden the most was book three and four where like Holden is really like keeping things together. Like I love the on the ground stuff a lot. Like I was that was my favorite book aside from like the first three books. It was just so
I
good.
I love book three. Prax and
Hmm.
his daughter just it's an incredible book. You know, also I think that's my favorite season of the TV
Hmm.
show as well. Um, honestly, it's like the gold standard of adaptations, especially considering like their budget at the time on sci-fi was like
Hmm.
peanuts compared to, you know, some of these other shows nowadays. But um yeah, like I even like the book after what is it, like the time skip even that a lot of people I guess didn't like. But it does kind of feel like they're like just trying to get you reacquainted with everyone after
Hmm.
it all. But yeah,
I like that Naomi and Holden are trying to retire, like right at the beginning of book seven, and
get it.
I was like,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Like the in the
Mhm.
'60s now or whatever, '50s. So it's
Yeah.
like, and they've been working these dangerous jobs for I don't know how long, 40 years probably at this point.
Yeah. I think one of the one of the saddest like chapters for me that didn't have to deal with any of the characters was like the degradation of the ship of the Rocinante, as like
Mm-hmm.
she had like stown it away and hiding, and like they come back to it to like get her up and running again, and like
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get that very like bittersweet moment. Like you can tell like there's so much affection, these characters have so much affection for this ship
Mm-hmm.
that they called home, and like watching it get old and dented and
Yeah.
like, like it's just like, oh, like that kind of affected me, but I don't know, like not to anthropomorphize like the ship, but it got me a
Mm-hmm.
little bit.
Yeah, that was one
Yeah.
of my favorite written chapters, I think, of the
Mm.
time skip books. Like, it was just so good. Like, I could have had a whole book of that. Like, I would have been happy. Because
Yeah.
it's Naomi and Alex, I believe, who are together, like, slowly fixing it up. And they're taking their
Yeah.
time. They're like, yeah, we can't rush too fast because people will notice our heat signatures or whatever. But, like, it was like such a somber like chapter to read, like because Naomi is having a lot of things going on
Mhm.
in her head, and she's thinking about them while she's tinkering with the ship, and it's like my favorite type of like chapter, like
Very homey.
yeah. And I really like to go back to book 4. I love the proto molecule stuff in that book, like where they're going into like these ruins and like doing a lot of like spelunking type of things, and
Mhm.
like awakening all this very ancient technology. Like I just love that shit. Like that's my favorite.
You know what I love is
Hmm.
Millerbot.
Yeah.
Millerbot was pretty like
Hmm.
crazy, but it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, I kind of just want to reread like the first 4 books again and just like
Mhm.
do that again. Because in the show, I watched that like all the way through last year, I think, when I lived at the
Mhm.
old apartment. And I remember like when I got to that season and it's Thomas Jane's head on like a spider like robot thing, and I was like, this is just the
Yeah.
best.
It
Like,
was pretty cool, yeah.
yeah. And like that's when I feel like the proto molecule is at its best in the series. Is when it's doing all this weird stuff, awakening technology. I love the rain gates, but like I don't know. Like I wish they could have found like more interesting stuff, like through the gates than just uh, the one planet they go to in book
Yeah.
4. But like
Illis.
yeah, and like I like Laconia for the most part, but again, it's just another like shitty space Nazi like dictatorship. Like
Yeah.
I didn't really
Like
care at all for Teresa's dad in book 7, and then he becomes brain dead. And I was kind of like, okay, like all right. It's like
yeah.
I just was not into it. But like I really like Teresa, so I was like I was invested on that level of like what's gonna happen with her dad and all that. But like
Mhm.
I don't know, like it feels like a huge weight off my shoulders finishing the series. Because I've been reading it for like 5 years now or
I
something.
don't know why you waited so long.
I I just whenever the interest struck, like and I
Yeah.
like I, like then
Yeah.
book 5 was probably my least favorite. Book 6 was even worse. I felt like where I just did not care about any of the characters except for Naomi and Philip. And like those were miserable chapters to read. I enjoyed reading them on a level, but I was just kind of like, okay, like I want to get back to my fun sci-fi, like
Mm.
everyone hanging out, and
Yeah.
like I don't know, like book 8 was my favorite one, like since book 4, and all the other ones I could give or take, like so. That's why it took
Can't
me
win them
so
all.
long. Yeah. So I was
Can't
just
win them
kind of
all.
like, when the interest hit, like I'll read it, and then
Mhm.
we were in like November, and I was like, wait, I only have like 2 books left. I'll just go ahead and finish it this year and kind of push myself to read it. So, and I'm happy I did. It's still a top 10 series, obviously. It's not bad at all. Like, I have a lot of issues with
Mm.
it, but at the end of the day, I'm very happy to have read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm very curious. I guess we can talk a little bit about the next series. I haven't started it yet, but it's on the shelf. Like,
Mm.
how's it like compared to the Expanse?
Totally different. If you go into it expecting that same kind of cozy found family thing with like a tight knit group, you're not going to be happy.
Hmm.
It's much more cerebral. It's much drier. Um, but like if you're into like puzzles and the mysteries of things and like
Mm-hmm.
like time dilation and science experiments, you might really like it. I will say that the novella that came out afterwards was a banger. Like super short, read it in a couple hours. Like it's just, such a quick little like jaunt through
Hmm.
something else. But that how like okay, here I can make this connection. You know how like in the expanse you can totally get like a little sprinkling of Ty Frank's like love of horror
Mm-hmm.
via the proto molecule. Like you get that real like the vomit zombies and it's just gross and it's dark and it's like what is this?
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of that sprinkling, I would say, like in Live Suit, the novella, where like like it builds and it has that like sense of unease to
Mm.
it where it's like if you're into a more slightly like horror type feeling kind of sprinkled in there, you might like it. But after reading the novella, I was like, okay, now like all the theories and all the ideas that I had, I'm just like, where do we go from here now? Because like I
Mm-hmm.
had thought I might have been on the track for something, and then after reading that, I was like, I actually have no idea what's going on. So, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm really intrigued. I'm very intrigued. I have no idea where it's going. Um, I'm hoping that it's in the direction of like big space opera, like big battle war type situation scenario, but I have no idea. No clue.
Yeah. And it sounds like I'll enjoy it more because one of my favorite series, Book the New Sun, it's like a
Mhm.
merging of fantasy and sci-fi. It's very cerebral, and I love that stuff so much. And like hearing that it's like
Yeah, I mean
even more
it's
like that.
you're in a group of like all scientists.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're not they're different than, like our Rossi crew. They're some of them are likable, some of them are not likable. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
are like enjoyable because they're not very likable. So I mean, like they don't have that depth, but um I don't, like it's just the first book. So like I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea where they're going with it. And where, we end up at the end of that book, it's like, well, okay, like what does this mean for everybody? Like just big question marks all across the board. So if you like trying to suss out riddles of like what's happening or what's going to happen, definitely fun.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I did enjoy reading all the science groups in the Expanse, so I feel like I'm gonna enjoy this one to some
Mhm.
level. But how many
Yeah,
books have they announced? Like, is it gonna be a trilogy or
I
another
think it's
nine
going to be a
books?
trilogy. I don't know how many novellas there's going to be. I would assume they'll do like one and then one and then one
Mm,
and then one. But
yeah.
I'm really not sure.
Hmm. Okay, good. Thank you.
And
So I
it's
was very
coming
curious.
soon. It's
Yeah.
coming soon. So
Have they
book
announced when
two.
book two is coming out? I think you said it's coming,
I think
right?
like
Soon.
March or April, I want to say.
Hmm. Yeah, I could read book one before then, and then read that when it comes out, because, like, it's not far. So,
Mm-mm.
and then book
I mean, you
three,
would
yeah.
crush the novella in an afternoon. It's like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, because that's what I like about the short stories for The Expanse. Like, it's just like 8 of them, I think, in this. Whoops, I just smacked myself.
hmm
And it has like 50 pages each, like just a few
yeah.
hours, maybe 2 hours. And like the last one that I read, it was like 60 pages. Like, so they're short, like, and I like that they are continuing that. I assume they'll
hmm
do a, I guess, compendium eventually. so I can just pick that up.
Yeah.
I might just wait on the novellas because I mixed in the short stories with it. I think you had sent me a reading order, and I followed
Hmm.
that, and I liked it for the most part. But I think that's why it took me so long, was that not all of the novellas I had really any interest in. So, so I think,
I'm saving them. I haven't read them
yeah,
all.
I think Sins About Fathers is like my favorite one, aside from the Anderson Station one. That one's just awesome. Ties a neat little bow. But yeah, we're exactly at an hour, so thank you so much for joining with me today. I've
Of
had just such
course.
a
Of
fun time.
course.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always fun. Always fun to talk about the expanse.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if I think I have like the book 9 review, and like that'll be it in terms of the expanse on my channel. Cause like I need a debrief, like a
Hmm.
break from the series. But
Yeah.
thank you again for joining with me, and
Thanks
thank
for
you for
having
watching,
me.
everyone.